In December of 1991, the television news program 60 Minutes aired a story named The Sound of Music, which highlighted the unexpected tourism boom that was occurring in Branson, Missouri. The small resort town in the Ozark Mountains was experiencing a rise in popularity, thanks to a thriving country music scene. Some of the genre's biggest stars, such as Loretta Lynn, Mel Tillis, Roy Clark, and Waylon Jennings, had taken up residency in Branson, with many acts even building their own theaters. The 60 Minutes report dubbed it the live country music capital of the universe, while others referred to it as the Las Vegas of the Midwest, the Christian Las Vegas, and even Hillbilly Heaven.
It's Hillbilly Heaven without the halos and wings.
I heard a number, 6 million in 6 months.
That's pretty close. But you have to work 2 shows a day and sign autographs.
The small town's ascent into a top tourist destination was certainly surprising. The 60 Minutes report went as far as to say that, quote, no one knows why Branson became such an entertainment hotspot. While the heights of Branson's success might have been unforeseen by many, it was not entirely random either. The seeds to Branson's boom had been planted nearly a century prior. In 1907, author Harold Bell Wright penned the novel The Shepherd of the Hills, which was set in the fictional Ozark mountain town of Mutton Hollow and partially based on Wright's trips to Branson. The book became one of the best-selling novels in American history up to that point, and naturally, many readers were compelled to visit the book's setting. The environment and culture detailed in Wright's novel was the main draw of Branson in the early 20th century. The area already featured a few attractions, most notably Marble Cave, one of the largest caves in Missouri. Marble Cave would eventually be renamed to Marvel Cave, and in 1950, Chicago vacuum cleaner salesman Hugo Herschend purchased a 99-year lease to the cave and planned to develop it in order to make it easier to tour. Hugo would pass just 5 years into the 99-year lease, leaving the remaining 94 years to his wife and sons. The Herschend family continued to make improvements inside the cave and soon outside of it, with the construction of several shops and eateries on the land directly outside of the cave's entrance. These facilities were themed to appear as a 19th century mining town, a reference to the actual mining town that had once existed outside of the cave but had been burned down by a group of local vigilantes known as the Bald Knobbers. The new themed area would be named Silver Dollar City, which officially opened on May 1, 1960. At the same time that Marvel Cave and Silver Dollar City were forming, Branson's music scene was being established. The neighboring Springfield, Missouri became the filming location for the Ozark Jubilee, a national television program featuring country music. In 1959, the Bald Knobbers Jamboree, a country music and comedy act named after the defunct vigilante group, started performing. This has been cited as Branson's first regular show, and more acts followed shortly after. Silver Dollar City continued to expand as more entertainment was established, which in turn encouraged the creation of other attractions. In 1970, the Mutton Hollow Arts and Crafts Village opened, owned by local entrepreneurs G.E. and Amanda Cushman. Named after the fictional town from the Shepherd of the Hills novel, Mutton Hollow featured several traditional Ozarks vendors selling goods to visitors, which enthralled tourists throughout the 1970s. In 1983, the first celebrity entertainment venue was built in Branson with the opening of the appropriately named Roy Clark Celebrity Theater. Other country music artists followed suit, and by 1991, Branson was in the midst of a celebrity boom. The once quiet Ozark town now boasted 22 theaters and was bringing in a reported $1 billion in annual revenue. The 1991 60 Minutes report effectively showcased the scale of Branson's entertainment operations to a nationwide audience, while also revealing its target demographic. Throughout most of Branson's near century as an entertainment destination, it had attracted family audiences, often Midwest families seeking a geographically convenient and less risque entertainment destination than that of Las Vegas. It was often said that the 3 F's of Branson were faith, family, and flag. However, the transition into a celebrity country music mecca had narrowed Branson's main audience to a very specific group of people. Old people. Old people. Elderly people. Specifically, the greatest generation, born between the years 1901 and 1927, who would have been, in 1991, between the ages of 63 and 90 years old. These people were herded around the country like cattle, primarily via bus, often organized by local retirement communities. These people, who came of age during the Great Depression, were described as socially conservative deal seekers. They wanted their entertainment cheap, free of cursing, little bit of Jesus, a lot of Americana, and if the envelope was pushed, it needed to be in a rowdy, good old boy way, not a scary, challenging of social norms way. Pandering to this clientele made a lot of people very wealthy. There's a lot of money to be made in exclusively catering to people that are just about to die. But there's also a problem with it. What happens when they do? Branson's main source of income were people that were just a few years or months, days, and you'd have to imagine in some cases minutes away from death. Absent significant and immediate advances in biohacking, Branson's boom could be short-lived, but at the time of the 60 Minutes report, there was no end in sight. Not only was the segment proof of Branson's growing influence, but many credit the 60 Minute special itself to driving Branson's attendance in the ensuing years even higher. This surge in visitors encouraged several of Branson's longtime entertainment purveyors to alter their strategies in the hopes of pulling in more of the tourism traffic. The quaint Mutton Hollow Arts and Crafts Village had been free to enter since its opening in 1970, but in 1992, the Cushman family greenlit a multi-million-dollar renovation, which would add 2 music theaters and 17 thrill rides to the land. After the changes began, Mutton Hollow began charging admission, but this shift in approach was not successful. Just 4 years later, admission was made free again, and the newly added rides were given a separate fee. The investments and format changes had not paid off, and in 1997, Mutton Hollow was set to be foreclosed on. The Cushmans, who had now operated the village for over 25 years, filed for bankruptcy to avoid the foreclosure. The park was not alone in its struggles, as numerous Branson theaters were filing for bankruptcy at this point, which some believe signaled an end to Branson's boom. The Cushman family was optimistic that they could get Mutton Hollow back on track, with their daughter commenting, quote, "Needless to say how dear it is to our hearts. This is a piece of Branson history, not only for our family, but for the whole area. I feel very peaceful about it. I know the good Lord is on our side." Unfortunately, in his infinite wisdom, God decided that what was actually best for the Cushmans was for Mutton Hollow to be foreclosed on and sold to Bob Weir, founder of Aaron's Automotive Parts. The 112-acre property, which was centrally located near Branson's bustling entertainment strip, sold for $2.5 million in December of 1997. Weir, who was in his early 70s at the time of purchase, initially said that he was not sure what he would do with the property, but not long after, he unveiled big plans for Mutton Hollow. Weir announced that he would be tearing down most of the quaint arts and crafts village in order to build a new amusement park in its place. His primary motivation for entering the amusement park business was simply that he believed that it would be fun. After purchasing the land, Weir brought in numerous consultants to look at the property, all of whom advised against building an amusement park. Weir explained, quote, "They thought a better use for the land, and one with higher earnings potential, was a new area of hotels, shopping, and theme restaurants," adding, quote, "I was hoping they would encourage me." Not swayed by the advice, Weir continued forward with his park, which he would name Branson USA. Most of the attractions that Weir assembled for his park were pre-existing or off-the-shelf amusement rides. This included a Ferris wheel from Italy and a roller coaster from Belgium. A few of Mutton Hollow's attractions would remain, as would the village's largest structure, a round building that had held Mutton Hollow's dinner show, which would become Branson USA's USA Theater. Some of the more unique features of the park would be an elevated go-kart track, a 2.5-acre miniature golf course, and most notably, a nightly laser light spectacular. Branson USA would not charge admission and would instead sell single ride tickets and an all-access day pass. Towards the end of construction, Weir remarked, quote, "We sure spent a lot more money than I had in mind, but I wanted to do it right." Branson USA officially opened on June 4th, 1999. Branson USA's debut was not met with much fanfare, and it seemed that the park was struggling with marketing, PR, and even describing its rides on its own website. Fireball, Do You Dare, only 4 of these in the US, and we have one. Sea Dragon, much more than it looks. Bumper cars, bumping your buddy is fun for everyone. Tarantula, a longtime fun ride. Despite adding 10 new rides in 2000, including the Zyklon coaster, Branson USA still struggled to get coverage in the media outside of an occasional mention alongside Branson's other attractions. However, that all changed in late July 2000, when the Twizzler Mobile, aka the Goo Mobile, pulled up to Branson USA. out popped the Goo Crew, who challenged the guests at the park to compete in a variety of tongue twisters. The Goo Crew, otherwise known as the Goo Patrol, was traveling the country in the Twizzler-mobile, aka the Goo-mobile, aka the PT Goozer, to promote the new Twizzlers Twist and Fill candy, as well as the upcoming Twizzlers Tongue Twister Challenge Championship, a competition in which children could submit their most innovative tongue twister for the chance to win a $10,000 scholarship. The winning tongue twister was, quote, "Terrifically tangy Twizzlers Twist and Fills, twist your tongue with taste. Try to top that." Terrifically tangy Twizzlers Twist and Fills, twist your tongue with taste, try to top that. Terrifically tangy Twizzlers Twist and Fills, twist your tongue with taste, try to top that. It's not that hard. How did that win? If you're wondering why I'm honing in on this so much, you're officially out of the Goo Crew. But if you must know, it's because this might have been the most exciting thing to take place at Branson USA in its first 2 seasons of operation. For the summer of 2001, Weir added a new water ride, the Pipeline Plunge Water Ride. That same year, the park also added the Magnificent Seven, a musical variety show that would take residency in Branson USA's theater.
There's a roller coaster and a fireball too, and the pipeline plunge, it's all waiting for you. Branson USA, it's fun to stay and play in Branson USA.
In preparation for this type of headlining show, a new building was attached to the existing Rotunda Theater building. Decorated to look like a castle, this building would serve as the USA Theater's dedicated entrance for those only visiting for the show, and it would also act as a convention center. On July 21, 2001, one of the trains on the Firestorm roller coaster crashed into the back of another, sending 8 people to the hospital. Media at the time reported on Branson USA's lack of responsiveness to the issue, with many of the victims unable to reach the park or its insurance company to discuss compensation for their bills. Despite costing just $20 for adults and $12 for children to access all of the park's attractions, Branson USA appeared to have failed to gain momentum in its first 3 seasons. Not only were they experiencing internal issues such as the Firestorm accident, but the Branson tourism boom as a whole appeared to be slowing. A string of bad weather throughout 2000 was blamed for stagnating ticket sales, but the excuses ran out when tourism dipped again in 2001. Many wondered if the thinkable had happened, that Branson's old consumer base, now 10 years older than when I first pointed out how old they were, was dwindling. And by that I mean dying of old age. They were old, you get it. In November of 2001, just 3.5 years after opening, it was announced that Branson USA would be closing. The inability to gain traction in the market, the accident on the Firestorm coaster, and the decline in Branson tourism could have all played a part in Weir's decision. But according to him, the reasoning was simple. Weir explained, quote, "As time went along and we got the theater opened, I realized I liked the theater business better." It also helped that Weir had reached a unique deal with the Silver Dollar City Corporation, who were looking to expand their theme park operations in Branson. The deal was not a simple sale. Rather, it was a land swap in which Silver Dollar City would acquire Branson USA, and Weir would acquire 2 central Branson properties and an undisclosed amount of cash. Lisa Rao, spokesperson for Silver Dollar City, said, quote, "It was the location and size of the relatively flat property that made it attractive." The Silver Dollar City Corporation, still owned by the Hershens, had come a long way from its humble origins as a cave tour. Not only had Silver Dollar City itself grown substantially, but the company had expanded into other themed entertainment ventures in Branson, such as the Showboat Branson Belle Dinner Cruise, the Whitewater Water Park, the Grand Palace Theater, and the Grand Village Shopping Mall. In 1977, the company purchased a park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and renamed it to Silver Dollar City, Tennessee. And in 1986, the Hershens sold an interest in the park to singer Dolly Parton. The park was renamed to Dollywood.
Your trip to the Smokies really isn't complete unless you visit Dollywood and share a family treat.
The Hershens had smaller ventures elsewhere, but their 2 primary hubs were obviously Branson and Pigeon Forge. Their attractions all had similar themes, played to a specific demographic, and had experienced similar success. The company was determined to expand their operations in both locations, and the acquisition of Branson USA would be the company's next big investment in the city in which they were founded. Initially, Silver Dollar City did not disclose their plans for the park, although initial documents did indicate that they planned to operate a theme park on the site. The month after the purchase was announced, construction began. It was not until July of 2002 that the company unveiled their plans for the space. Unlike Weir, who built his park seemingly on a whim and against the advice of multiple experts, the plans that Silver Dollar City had for the space were strategic and well thought out. The new park would be named Celebration City, and it would be themed around early to mid 20th century America. This would set it apart from the 1880s theme of Silver Dollar City. but it would also help appeal to younger audiences. The plans for Celebration City were clearly made with the understanding that Branson needed to transition away from the greatest generation to a younger, hipper generation, the baby boomers. The differences between the consumer habits of the two generations was stark. Tim O'Brien, editor of Amusement Business magazine, explained, quote, "The niche of the old-timers is dying off, but there's a whole new crop of seniors. It's the baby boomers, and they're totally a new generation. They're not doing the things the older generation did. They're still doing the things they did before they were seniors." And they still are. Making this transition would not be an easy task. Branson's average visiting age at this point in the early 2000s was 55. That's an average. That means for every 10-year-old boy that loves roller coasters, there would need to be a 100-year-old geriatric man who would die if he rode one to get that average back to 55. In order to appeal to the young, hot baby boomers, Celebration City would incorporate themes from the mid-century, including car culture and rock and roll. Claudia Vecchio, VP of Communications for the Branson Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce, said the park would, quote, "celebrate mid-century America, a time that is more familiar to baby boomers. This park will definitely bring new visitors." Another motivation for Celebration City and its thematic setting would be that it would allow Silver Dollar City to make compromises with quality and atmosphere that they were unwilling to make at their flagship park. While Silver Dollar City had grown substantially in its first 4 decades of operation, it was still different from a typical regional amusement park. It was heavily themed, and it mainly consisted of quieter attractions, traditional demonstrations, and small shops. One of the park's most exciting rides was an indoor roller coaster named Fire in the Hole, and this attraction was much more focused on story and dark ride scenes than thrills. It would not be until 1993 that Silver Dollar City would receive its first outdoor roller coaster, Thunderation, and in 1999, the park received an innovative, but ultimately unreliable, roller coaster water ride hybrid named Buzzsaw Falls. These custom-themed thrill rides added excitement to the park, but Silver Dollar City's quiet atmosphere and consistent theming was still valued by both management and guests. There seemed to be an aversion to adding non-themed, off-the-shelf thrill rides, which could potentially produce a more rowdy, carnival-like atmosphere. That said, these types of rides are attractive to park operators. For one, more thrill rides attract more thrill seekers, which helps bring in a younger crowd. Plus, off-the-shelf rides are almost always cheaper and quicker to add and maintain. Celebration City would be able to take advantage of these benefits, while keeping the potential drawbacks completely separate from Silver Dollar City. The new park would still be a theme park, but the themes chosen would allow for more flexibility with ride selection. One of the areas would be themed to an early 20th century boardwalk, in the vein of Coney Island, which would allow for the placement of several standard amusement park rides while retaining thematic consistency. The announcement in July of 2002 alluded to the possibility that Celebration City would open later in the day, and would rely on the foot traffic of nearby attractions on the Branson Strip. Another press release in November of 2002 further detailed this concept. Celebration City would not open until 3 p.m. every day, and it would stay open until either 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. on most days. The idea was for it to be a sequel park, with the intention being that guests would spend the first part of their day in the 19th century themed Silver Dollar City, and then travel to the 20th century themed Celebration City to end their day. This was a bespoke, linear, narrative park hopping experience, and Silver Dollar City did not seem to grasp, or at least communicate, just how ambitious this concept was. Linda Antis, VP of Marketing and Sales for Silver Dollar City, simply explained that Celebration City would be, quote, as different from Silver Dollar City as night and day, literally. This will be the place to go at night after being at Silver Dollar City during the day. There were very few details provided on how this migration process would occur, or how many people Silver Dollar City thought would be splitting their day between the two parks. Construction continued on Celebration City throughout 2002. In January of 2003, it was announced that the new park would open in May of that year. The park cost $40 million to construct and would occupy around 40 acres of the 112-acre property that Silver Dollar City had acquired from Weir. A few of Branson USA's attractions would remain and be reused, most notably the Ferris wheel, but the scale of the construction was significant. Rao emphasized, quote, "We're not just putting some paint on what was, this is a whole new theme park." The park's main attraction would be a new wooden roller coaster built by the Pennsylvania-based Great Coasters International, or GCI. The tall wooden structure would be visible from around Branson's main strip, and the ride was intended to serve as a sort of billboard for the park. The GCI coaster would cost $4 million to construct, around 10% of the park's total budget. In December of 2002, Silver Dollar City Incorporated rebranded to the Hershend Family Entertainment Corporation to better reflect the scope of their expanding entertainment operations. The finishing touches were being put on Celebration City throughout the spring of 2003. Despite Hershend's confidence in the concept, there were clearly some details still being worked out. The park planned to open with 1,500 parking spaces, despite having a total capacity of 9,000 people. The general manager of Celebration City, Steve Honeycutt, explained, quote, "Early on, it seemed adequate, but we're the buzz of the town. I don't think we'll be able to meet the demand, and that's a nice problem to have." Honeycutt added that the exact time the park would close was also up in the air, explaining, quote, "We're saying we're going to close at 11. We may push that to 12. If we're busy and people are having a good time, we're not going to run them out." The park's construction lasted just 16 months, and on May 1st, 2003, Celebration City opened its gates, hoping to draw a new generation of tourists to the Branson area. Visitors entered Celebration City through Celebration Street, an area themed to the turn of the century, with several new structures built to resemble Victorian-era buildings. Celebration Street mainly consisted of shops, but the land did feature one ride, a carousel. This carousel was left over from Branson USA, but it was repainted and moved to this prime location at the entrance of the park. After reaching the end of Celebration Street, if guests turned left, they would enter Route 66, an area set in the mid-century. Not only did this theme specifically appeal to baby boomers who grew up in this era, but it also had a local connection. The nearby Springfield, Missouri is recognized as the birthplace of Route 66 because in 1926, an entrepreneur from Springfield suggested renaming what was then Highway 62 to the more catchy and now iconic Route 66. Celebration City's Route 66 area would feature several rides left over from Branson USA, such as the Tilt-A-Whirl, the Scrambler, and several kiddie rides. The go-kart track was rethemed to the Route 66 Go-Kart Speedway. The mini golf course was rethemed to Roadside Golf, and the bumper cars were rethemed to slick, slightly used bumper cars. Branson USA's Sky Chaser Ferris wheel became the Electric Star Wheel, and the Firestorm roller coaster became the Thunderbolt. There were also several new off-the-shelf rides, such as the Orbiter and the Jack Rabbit roller coaster. The area also featured several themed shops and restaurants, including the Last Chance Diner. The highlight of Route 66, and Celebration City as a whole, was the Ozark Wildcat. The GCI coaster stood just over 80 feet tall and featured over 2,600 feet of track. It had a relatively small footprint, resulting in a ride time of just 90 seconds. Originally, the attraction was said to feature a 360-degree spiraling drop and reach speeds of 66 miles per hour. However, after opening, these were amended to be a 310-degree spiraling drop with a max speed of 45 miles per hour. The coaster did effectively act as a billboard for the park, occupying the space closest to the highway, making the park visible to those driving down the Branson Strip. Celebration City's third themed area would be the Electric Boardwalk. This area experienced the least amount of change during the transition to Celebration City, as in this same spot, Branson USA had an area named the Boardwalk, and several of these structures, rides, and games would remain intact, including the Boardwalk games, the Boardwalk kiddie rides, and the Fireball. Branson USA's Fall Creek Plunge was rethemed to Shoot to Shoot. The Accelerator Drop Tower was also added and was used heavily in the park's promotion. A few of the buildings that Branson USA had inherited from Mutton Hollow still remained in Celebration City, most notably the Rotunda Theater, which was renamed to the Celebration Theater and would be used for shows, with the attached building renamed to Celebration Hall. The highlight of the Electric Boardwalk would be the Great Lawn. This would be the venue for the nightly spectacular, named Celebrate. The new show, which was not ready at the time of opening, was to be set in front of a 45-foot-tall faux rock wall, which appeared as the side of a mountain. The display would incorporate lasers, projections, confetti, and fireworks, all while paying tribute to iconic moments and notable figures from 20th century America, such as the space race and Elvis. In addition to showcasing 20th century icons, the Celebrate show featured a story, which an article in the Tulsa World paper described as a, quote, simple one, but then went on to describe the narrative, in which, quote, a young person and her grandfather release a tornado-like spirit called Fizzgig, the Queen of Celebrations, who takes the two and the viewers through the past 5 decades. Hershend stuck to its original concept. Celebration City did not open until 3 p.m., while Silver Dollar City closed at 7 p.m. Herschend heavily advertised multi-park passes, which they referred to as city hoppers, to encourage people to start their day at Silver Dollar City and end their day at Celebration City. Unlike Branson USA, Celebration City received a massive amount of coverage at the time of its opening. Herschend pulled out all of the stops, holding a grand opening celebration at the end of May, with the Celebrate fireworks show premiering during it. The park continued to receive positive press throughout its inaugural season. It remained open on weekends throughout the fall before closing entirely for the winter. For the 2004 season, Celebration City added 2 new rides, Chaos and Flying Circus, as well as adding additional theming and improving the food and merchandise options. According to Lisa Rao, the additions were made because, quote, Celebration City did what we hoped it would do, and that's why we decided to make this investment. It attracted families as well as new visitors. It gave people one more very active reason to visit Branson. During the 2004 season, Herschend began allowing a non-denominational evangelical church named Woodland Hills to hold services out of the Celebration Theater throughout the morning, with the condition that the congregation must vacate the premises by the time Celebration City opened in the afternoon. This was a rare and strange agreement that only makes sense given that Herschend is a Christian company and that the park had bizarre operating hours. Celebration City experienced a few changes in preparation for its 2005 season. The Route 66 eatery Kix Grill became Kix Barbecue. A new upcharge attraction was also added to Route 66, a life-size version of the game Rock'em Sock'em Robots, where guests would climb into each fighter and throw punches at one another. This throwback game was perfect for the mid-century theming of Route 66, but the contracted company that owned and operated the game did not have the license to use Rock'em Sock'em Robots, so Celebration City's attraction was instead called Rock'em Knock'em Robots. Also new in 2005 was the Circus Tree Gardens. The Herschends prided themselves on protecting and showcasing nature in their attractions, having a long-standing rule that for every 1 tree they cut down, 2 more must be planted. The Circus Tree Gardens were a way to add more serenity and nature to Celebration City, which was much needed given that a large part of Branson USA was sprawling concrete patches with scarce greenery or shade. One of the biggest changes for 2005 was a complete revamp of Celebration City's nighttime show, which was said to cost $2 million. The new show, named Nightfire, Igniting the American Spirit, would retain the Americana focus of Celebrate, but would add additional effects and show elements.
It was absolutely patriotic, and it really raised the hair on my arms. It was absolutely beautiful.
President Reagan, when they brought down the wall with the Gorbachev, we liked that real well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Finally, while not a complete rebrand, Celebration City received a new logo, transitioning from a classical, elegant style to a louder, more modern-looking one. By this point, many were wondering when Celebration City's next big addition would be unveiled, which made Herschend's announcement at the end of the season somewhat surprising. On November 6, 2005, Herschend Family Entertainment announced an $8 million expansion of Silver Dollar City. The new area would be named the Grand Exposition and would be themed to the fairs and expos of the late 19th century. As part of the expansion, Silver Dollar City would add 10 new family-friendly rides, which would nearly double the park's ride count, going from a mere 11 rides to 21. These new attractions would consist primarily of off-the-shelf flat rides, using the exposition theme to justify their inclusion in the space. This was an interesting decision. Often, when a company opens an additional gate, they run the risk of cannibalizing their own business, the fear being that the new attraction will hurt attendance at the existing, older one. That did not happen with the addition of Celebration City. Whether it was because the park was not entirely new, or because it did not have as much to do, or because of the operating hour strategy, Silver Dollar City was not negatively affected by the opening of the new park. The summer that Celebration City opened, Silver Dollar City experienced an attendance dip of around 10%, which some officials attributed to Celebration City, although there were several other factors, including Branson's slowing tourism, that were also cited. If Celebration City was to blame, the effects were short-lived. Just 2 seasons later, Silver Dollar City was doing great, with Rao even stating that the park's attendance was growing at a rate of 100,000 visitors annually. This is what made the announcement of the Grand Exposition all the more curious. Not only was this an additional investment in the park that was already doing well, but it would specifically add the exact type of rides that Celebration City already had. These were really the only type of rides that Celebration City had outside of the Ozark Wildcat. Rao confirmed that Celebration City's attendance had not been rising, and that the company would be making an investment in the park. explaining that attendance was, quote, flat to slightly down, and that's why we're adding more to do. But nothing that Herschend had announced for Celebration City came close to the $8 million Grand Exposition expansion that Silver Dollar City would receive. There was one sacrifice that Herschend seemed willing to make to give Celebration City an advantage. In 2002, Silver Dollar City had partnered with Big Idea Productions to bring a stage show based off of the popular VeggieTales video series to the park. This was a match made in literal Christian heaven. VeggieTales was a video series in which a cast of anthropomorphic vegetables retold stories from the Bible. By the early 2000s, it was the #1 kids video series on Earth. Herschend was America's premier Christian-themed entertainment company. The pairing was perfect, and the appearance of Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber at Silver Dollar City was a huge draw for families. In 2003, Dollywood received a VeggieTales stage show, and in 2005, they would receive the first VeggieTales-themed ride, the VeggieTales Sideshow Spin Coaster. In Branson, though, Herschend had decided to send the veggies to the struggling Celebration City. A new VeggieTales video would play in the Celebration Theater, and children would also be able to meet the stars, Bob the Tomato and Larry the Cucumber, which answered the age-old question, how do you hug a tomato? Because you can't hug Bob where you would want to, where it would be normal to. That's where his mouth is. So you gotta kind of hold him, like the pregnant woman emoji. Other additions in 2006 included the extreme sport of mountain boarding stunt show and the interactive stage show, Movie Magic, Lights, Camera, Action, and You, which allowed kids to produce and star in Hollywood films such as Rocky, Pink Panther, Legally Blonde, and Agent Cody Banks. 1 year after its debut, Nightfire, Ignite the American Spirit was changed to Ignite the Night, which was now touted as a $3 million show. One attraction, Chaos, was removed for the 2006 season, which the park declined to comment on, but many speculated that it was due to maintenance issues. The 2007 season saw the addition of 2 new animal shows. First, Sea Lion Splash would be staged in a new pool built on the parking lot near Route 66. This show was created in partnership with Animal Planet. The other show, named Parrot Party, would take place inside of the Celebration Theater. A new ride, the Stinger, was also added near the Jackrabbit roller coaster. It was not until the 2008 season that Celebration City received a significant addition. Herschend added a new attraction named Roaring Falls, which sent 20 passenger boats down a 5-story, 55-degree drop. The attraction originally opened at Ohio amusement park Geauga Lake as Shipwreck Falls in 2000, and was sold to Herschend after the amusement park portion of Geauga Lake closed in 2007. Celebration City's version of the attraction added Amazon theming, with sound and mist effects to set the tone, despite this not fitting in with the theme of the boardwalk area or really any of Celebration City's established themes. Rouse said of the addition, quote, "The bottom line is, we are not the boss. The guests are the boss, and mostly Mom. Roaring Falls is exactly what they want, a big, get-wet, whole family thrill ride." 2008 also saw the addition of a Frisbee dog show named Jump, and apparently Parrot Party was lame and tensionless because it was replaced by Extreme Parrots, whatever that means. Unfortunately, the high-octane nature of the parrots and the other additions to the park were not enough to turn the tide. The 2008 season was another quiet one for Celebration City. The park was visited by around 300,000 to 400,000 guests, the same range that it had experienced every year since opening in 2003. Silver Dollar City, on the other hand, was visited by over 2 million people a year, making Celebration City's attendance look far worse, even when accounting for fewer operating days. 2008 was a poor year for tourism in general, due to the effects of the economic recession and high gas prices. And Branson specifically had a wet spring that resulted in severe flooding, turning away many travelers. These external pressures forced Herschend to take a hard look at its operations, and by the end of the year, the company had made a difficult decision. On Friday, October 24, 2008, Herschend Family Entertainment announced that Celebration City would be closing for good. Rao explained, quote, "What we developed at Celebration City was a good property, but it did not meet our financial expectations." The company broke the news the day before the final operating day of the 2008 season, resulting in the park permanently closing just 24 hours after the announcement. Herschend worked to relocate as many employees as possible to their other Branson attractions. Rao stated that Herschend intended to redevelop the Celebration City property into, quote, "some other kind of attraction," and that, quote, several ideas were in the works, including a potential aquarium, although no plans were ready to be disclosed. Rouse stated, quote, "It's sad. We're not happy to do this. These are tough economic times." The reaction to Celebration City's closure was split. The park had developed a fan base in its 6 seasons of operation, who were obviously devastated by the announcement of the park's closure. At the same time, many longtime Branson residents and visitors were not surprised to see the park go, and a few might have even been happy to see the park fail. This contingency of people mainly consisted of those that grew up going to Mutton Hollow, which by comparison was a more quaint, authentic, and most critically, generational experience. Mutton Hollow lasted 4 times as long as Celebration City, and it had captured the hearts of significantly more people. Many of these fans blamed Herschend for the destruction of Mutton Hollow, even though Weir and Branson USA were actually responsible. While unfair and incorrect, this sentiment hung over Celebration City. The one aspect of the park that was universally mourned was the closure of the Ozark Wildcat, Celebration City's most unique and critically praised attraction. When the closure was announced, many hoped that the coaster would be moved or integrated into whatever Herschend had planned for the property next. 2009 passed with no updates on the site. On May 16th, a liquidation sale was held, in which discounted merchandise was sold to clear the park's remaining inventory. Over the next few years, several of Celebration City's attractions were relocated. The Jackrabbit Coaster, the Scrambler, and Flying Circus were moved to another Herschend property, Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. Fireball and Shoot to Shoot were sold to carnival operators, who took them to fairs around the country. The Thunderbolt coaster was purchased by Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park in Colorado, where it would open as Cliffhanger in 2012. Even with these relocations, many attractions remained on the site 3 years after the permanent closure of the park, including the highly visible Ozark Wildcat. The Woodland Hills Church continued to operate out of the Celebration Theater, and even expanded into the park, renting out a few of the vacant buildings. Herschend began using some of the buildings for administrative tasks, such as offices and storage. In 2011, the company allowed Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Ozarks to use a building in the park as an office. In 2014, Herschend unveiled plans for another expansion to Silver Dollar City, named Fireman's Landing. This $8 million land would feature 10 new attractions, 6 of which were family rides. One of these would be Celebration City's Accelerator Drop Tower, which was rethemed to Firefall to fit the new area. While Herschend continued to invest in Silver Dollar City, Celebration City sat mostly abandoned. Given that there were some authorized activities, the park was not entirely fenced off, resulting in several urban explorers walking right into the park. Much of Celebration City's theming and exteriors remained in relatively good condition, and several rides, such as the Carousel and the Ozark Wildcat, sat motionless in full view. Most eerie, one of the props from the Route 66 area, a giant cymbal-banging monkey toy, was left behind, and the already creepy-looking statue was deteriorating quickly. In 2015, the Orbiter, which had remained on the property for some time, was finally moved to Wild Adventures, where it opened as Jungle Rumble. That same year, Herschend would release their biggest update on the park since it was closed. Unfortunately, it was more bad news. The Ozark Wildcat, which had now been sitting dormant as long as it had operated, would be demolished. Some of the trains would be sent to Dollywood to be used on their GCI coaster, Thunderhead, while the rest of the structure would be completely destroyed. This would be the first GCI coaster to be demolished, and as of early 2026, the only one. The demolition would take several months. Rouse said that the ride was unable to be moved and that the demolition was always the plan. Herschend had just now dedicated the resources to going through with it, adding, quote, "Something that people may not realize is that demolition is expensive." She also added that the property was, quote, "still something in the creative minds of our people, but it is not anything that is in any stage of blueprints at all." The group most dismayed at the destruction of the Ozark Wildcat was certainly the Woodland Hills Church. Ministry Director Denise Bevan said of the structure, quote, "It's been our location marker for telling people how to get to what we call our castle." The church's senior pastor, Ted Cunningham, asked that Woodland Hills creative director Corey Mitchell film the destruction of the coaster, so it could be documented and uploaded to the church's YouTube and Facebook page. Mitchell was able to capture the moment when the demolition crew attempted to take down one of the main stretches of track. After putting up a good fight, the Ozark Wildcat finally relented, toppling over into a tangled mess of wood. Some members of the church retrieved a few planks of the wood and made them into ornaments. passing out 800 of them to the congregation. The description of the demolition video read, quote, "We hope you can still find us for church on Sundays." The Ozark Wildcats demolition felt like a true goodbye to the park, but much of Celebration City remained abandoned. Most of the original structures, thematic elements, and even a few rides sat unused for years. The next significant update would come 7 years after the Ozark Wildcats demolition. In 2022, an auction was held, which consisted of many of Celebration City's props and theming. This included antique vehicles, neon signage, authentic Route 66 memorabilia, antiques, and plenty of equipment and machines. One of the most valuable pieces sold at the event was the park's carousel, which had been sitting abandoned for nearly 14 years and was missing a horse. The auction took place throughout the abandoned park, with the items placed directly outside the park's intact themed structures. While this purged Celebration City of many of its visually interesting elements, much of the park still remained. As of 2026, most of the park's structures can still be seen. The Victorian-era buildings of Celebration Street, the Great Lawn and its large rock wall, the go-kart track, and the buildings of Route 66 all survive, sitting abandoned. The Woodland Hills Church continues to use the Celebration Theater, which is still made up partly of the Rotunda Theater that had originally been built for Mutton Hollow decades prior. Hershon still claims to be looking into options for the valuable property, which sits directly adjacent to the still busy Branson Strip. Celebration City was and is a curiosity, one that Hershon Family Entertainment still seems to be trying to figure out. The reason the park failed could be as simple as that it had no chance to succeed, because Branson just might not be able to support 2 theme parks. The boom that Branson experienced in the 90s was not sustainable, especially with its specific clientele. And while the town remains a popular tourist destination, it might never be one that can support 2 parks. The fact that Mutton Hollow, and then Weir, and then the Hershons themselves failed to establish one, especially given its prime location, indicates that this is an open and shut case of too much capacity for the existing market. On the other hand, Celebration City was weird. The entire concept of the sequel park and the linear park hopping experience was more ambitious than Hershon seemed to realize. A post by a user named Chadster on the Theme Park Review forums claims to have interviewed for Celebration City 7 months before the park opened. Chadster recalled, quote, "I quizzed them about having 2 parks close together. The park's GM said their theory was that Silver Dollar City would close between 6 and 8 in the evening, and that guests would just naturally migrate to Celebration City to end their day. I was skeptical. Some sources claim that Celebration City was not losing a lot of money, and most years, it was profiting, albeit barely. If the park ever had any chance of surviving, then one of 2 things needed to happen. First, Hershon needed to invest in another impressive unique ride, such as Ozark Wildcat, to make the park a true destination. Or they needed to go all in on their split day concept. Both paths could negatively impact Silver Dollar City, which Hershon seemed unwilling to do. Throughout most of Celebration City's life, the park opened at 3 p.m. and closed at 10 p.m., while Silver Dollar City opened at 9:30 a.m. and closed at 7 p.m. This meant that if Silver Dollar City was pushing guests out to spend their night at Celebration City, they would have less than 3 hours to spend there before the park closed. The pricing of Celebration City was also interesting. Throughout its first 3 years, tickets cost around $30 per adult, while Silver Dollar City cost around $40 per adult. When accounting for the difference in operating hours, this meant that both parks were charging around $4 per hour, despite Silver Dollar City having far more to offer, something that was not lost on value-conscious Midwest families. Hershon did reduce the price of Celebration City to around $22 for the 2006 season, but by 2008, it was back up to $29, although in this same time, Silver Dollar City had surpassed $50 per adult, making Celebration City look like a good value by comparison. Celebration City's success in weaving themes around otherwise generic off-the-shelf rides might have also been its downfall, as it gave the company the confidence to do the same at Silver Dollar City, only better. Whether it was closing Silver Dollar City early, keeping Celebration City open later, adjusting pricing, adding another major thrill ride, or abandoning the day and night concept entirely, Hershon did not seem eager to do whatever it would take to make Celebration City work. They hoped the park would be an overnight sensation, and they were not interested in a decade-long test and adjust in order to make the 2-park setup a success. The Hershons have alluded to this in the years following Celebration City's closure. According to the Springfield News Leader, in 2012, Jack Hershon, quote, used the term arrogant to describe some ventures, including Celebration City. In the nearly 2 decades following Celebration City's closure, Hershent has continued to improve their existing parks, while also acquiring a few more. Silver Dollar City has grown into one of the most beloved regional parks in the United States, with an incredible variety of attractions, from their traditional, quaint demonstrations to new world-class thrill rides. In 2024, Silver Dollar City announced a $500 million development plan, which would begin with the construction of the Silver Dollar City Resort. This mirrors the company's strategy for the similarly successful Dollywood, and it will solidify Silver Dollar City as one of the Ozarks' main draws. The news of the expansion fueled speculation about a second gate for the property, although it appears that if this were ever to occur, it would more than likely be on the 1,200 undeveloped acres surrounding Silver Dollar City and not on the grounds of Celebration City. In 2025, Hershent Family Entertainment made its biggest move yet, acquiring Palace Entertainment from Parques Reunidos, which brought 24 additional U.S. attractions into the still family-owned company. The continued success of both Silver Dollar City and Hershent Family Entertainment makes the abandoning of Celebration City all the more interesting. The park is a true mixed bag. It is a remnant of both fear and overconfidence, of ambition and disinterest. Many people miss it, many are apathetic to it, and a few are even happy that it's gone. It is a true curiosity. It has now been abandoned for 3 times as long as it operated, and its future remains uncertain. Maybe one day it will finally be raised for a different attraction or business. Maybe it will be abandoned forever, slowly succumbing to the nature of the Ozarks. Or maybe it will become a theme park once more and be given a 4th chance to establish itself in Branson's ever-changing entertainment landscape.